So here we are, and I'm going to try to make a video that I can push up onto my not website, but my uh, YouTube site. And it's going to be for um, a certain person, and that person will know that it's for them. And if I decide to keep it later on, then I'll just change the beginning a little bit so it doesn't mention that it's just for a person. But a question was put to me about Romans and Romans 11th chapter, where Paul talks about the grafting in of the Gentiles into the natural tree or natural branches, olive tree, and whether or not it's only one specific race that's involved with that whole thing. And I thought I'd go ahead and try to study up on the concept of the Gentiles and and if we've got the right idea of who the Gentiles are. And so I did a whole lot of reading on that. And generally, the regular church, not the identity, not Christian identity, but the regular church, their concept is that the Gentiles, let me back up and say, their concept is that there are two groups of people in the world. There are the chosen people of God, who are the Jews, and then there's everybody else, and they're the Gentiles. So you've got two groups, the Jews and the Gentiles. And pretty much, that's the way it is when you're reading the Bible. Those are the words in English in the New Testament. Jews, J-E-W or J-E-W-S, and Gentiles. So, it's not too far-fetched for them to come up with the idea that there are just two groups, Jews, Gentiles, and that's it. But just a little bit of common sense would tell you that, well, the Gentiles that's everybody else. Okay, so anybody that's not a Jew. Then you get into the problem of who is a Jew, because the Jews today's Jews, they argue amongst themselves as to what a Jew is, whether it's physical or whether it's just to do with Judaism, the religion of Judaism, or whether it's got to do with their whole culture. So if they eat the matzo balls and keep a little bit of some of the cultural stuff, then that's fine. Then they're a Jew. Because if you look at the people that today call themselves Jews, they're everything under the sun. They can be Chinese, Japanese, black, brown, yellowish in tint. They can be blonde-haired, blue-eyed, just everything. These different people that are Jews. And if you go in and watch political stuff on YouTube, or watch the regular news, watch Fox News or whatever you want, you're going to see all these different people. And if you check in a little bit, you say, okay, well, all right, they would tell you that yes, they're Jews or Jewish, but a lot of them look quite different, got all kinds of different varieties. Now there are certain ones you can look at and you say, okay, well, they appear to be of the same type of group, because I can see that in them. But then you got others that look quite a bit different. What they look like, they're just like Muslim, some of the Muslim Arabs from the Middle East, and Turkish and all kinds of other things. And and then they look like they're German, the Germans. They might even look like they're Swedish, whatever. So there's all kinds of different people, and they got an argument going as to what a Jew really is. Main thing is that they're matriarchal. So their idea is that if you're really a Jew, then you are a product of a Jewish woman. So whatever the Jew is, the Jewish woman, whatever she is, she's the one that produces Jews. Now, if her husband happens to, look exactly like she does and be from the same culture that she is and have the same religion that she has, believes the same things that she does, teaches the same things that she does, and has children, just because he is Jewish, he's from a Jewish mother, doesn't mean his kids are Jewish. The kids have to be from a Jewish woman. That's the matriarchal situation. Contrary to the Bible definitely indicates that the children are from the man. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob's seed, all the way down the line. Always the man, the man, the man, the man, the man. It all depends on the man, not with modern Jews, the type that you could run into today or the last 100 years or the last few hundred years. Their deal is all with the woman. So that's kind of important to remember that. All right, so that's the general thing. So, for instance, I've got a huge library. All right, I've got a huge library. I've got about 2,000 Christian books in my library, which is just over that away in a bedroom. My bedroom is wooden shelves on both sides, bottom to top, and on the end and back up here. Where is it? Let me point there. No, this way. There, over there behind me. A lot of books up there, and they're just all over the place. Here's a stack of books here. There's a stack of books here in front of me. There's just books all around me. So I got a couple thousand books that are Christian books. All right, and I've got commentaries. All right, I've got commentaries from all the books of the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. And let's see. Let me just pull out. This is a New Testament special version thing here. So I'll just show you. Here's the Acts of the Apostles, which is a Tyndale commentary, softbound. And I did a little work in that one. And this is Matthew Henry. Let's see, would it be upside? No, this way. Matthew Henry's commentary on the whole Bible. This one. I've also got another big Matthew Henry, and one by what's his name? He was a Methodist minister. It's about yay thick and that big. It's huge. One by him, and then I got all kinds of Calvins. This one happens to be on Romans and Thessalonians, and I did some work in there on this little study I went through. And here's the Epistle to the Romans by Charles Hodge, an 1800s American theologian. Here's Calvin again on the Acts of the Apostles. Did some work in there. And here's Calvin again on the Acts of the Apostles, 1 through chapters 1 through 13. Did some work in there. Here's a big one here. Popular Commentary of the Bible, New Testament, Volume 2. And this one has Epistles of the Apostle Paul. It also has Hebrews and the Catholic epistles, and that doesn't mean Catholic Church. That means the general epistles. And then the book of Revelation is in that one. So I did some work in here on epistles of Paul, Romans, specifically Romans. All right, then I did work in the dictionary. So here's Unger's Bible Dictionary, big, thick Unger's Dictionary. And here's a Funken Wagnall Bible Dictionary. You can't, it's so old that it's just, you can't hardly read the name of it anymore. This is originally 1920s, updated in 1936. So I mean, it goes back quite a ways. Here's Westminster, the New Westminster Dictionary of the Bible, as you can see there. And so I did work in all of these primarily in regard to the concept of the Gentiles. And pretty much same thing. Yep, same thing. They all agree that there's two groups of people in the world. Let me get these put back up again here out of my way. Two groups of people in the world. That's the Jews and the Gentiles. I also looked up the verses in Romans in regard to the olive tree, the branches, the grafting in, and so on. And a lot of them have a little bit different ideas on it, but pretty much they're just talking about, whether or not Paul really understood how trees operated, and whether or not he really understood how cuttings were made and what cuttings could be put into what tree, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's basically what they're talking about. They have no concept whatever as to what's really happening, because they do not know that the Gentiles are 10-tribed Israel. They're the 10-tribe Israel people that God divorced and sent out into the through Assyria, through the Assyrian Empire, sent them out into the Assyrian areas, and they some of them ended up in Europe, England, whatever, over time, but many of them are just the very ones that Paul has written all his books to, the Galatians and the Ephesians and Cappadocia and Bithynia and all those places. Those are all 10-tribed Israelites. 700 years later, when Christ came, 700 years later. So many of them had died, new ones born, died, new ones born, died, new ones born, died. And Christ came to redeem them. I come not but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So, and here's another one, Preacher's Homiletic Library. And this is Proclaiming the New Testament by Turnbull, John to Romans. It's volume 2, Baker Book House. So anyway, so those books are all just the regular church. So their concept again is that there's two groups of people, Jews and Gentiles. So what is happening with Paul in the book of Romans is that God is grafting in the non-Israelites into Israel, because they admit, that the Jews in the New Testament, Jews, they are Israel. They're the Israelites. And that the other people, the Gentiles, are not. They're not Israelites unless you get to where their understanding is that that the two of them together make spiritual Israel. The non-Israelites and the Israelites, so the Gentiles and the Jews, put them together and they make the totality of spiritual Israel. Now, what did I do with that? Oh, here it is here. right now because I'm trying to do this thing, and I don't have a regular studio for making these videos. I haven't made them for months. So here's a book. Put it up in front of the thing there. You can see it. Robertson. This is a series that I have. It's Robertson's Word Pictures in the New Testament. This is volume 4, Epistles of Paul. And Robertson is supposed to be one of the greatest authorities on the Greek language. This is how it looks inside your Word Pictures New Testament, Archibald Robertson. And this is 1931. This one he did his work in this one, copyright 1931, by the Sunday School Board of the Southern Baptist Convention, 6-volume set. So in here, I was just going to read a little bit, page 398, 399, 398, and he's talking in here about Romans chapter 11, verse 26. Now, I'm not going to read everything he's got because he has the English, then he puts in all the Greek words. And I generally don't read Greek. I mean, I can study it real quick, and so that I can remember, the alphabet, A, B, C, D, F, G, right? And then I can look at a word and say, okay, I see what that is if I'm just looking at the Greek. But I never remember it, so I always have to bring out my materials, which I've got right beside me here in another cabinet here full of books. And I've got my Greek and some of my Greek and Hebrew books in there. But I've got to haul them out and then go in there and look at them for a while so that I can get a little bit of that in my brain, and then I can read some parts of verses at least. That's the way it goes with me. But he says here, by the complement of the Gentiles, stirring up the complement of the Jews, verses 11 and following. And then he says, all Israel, pas Israel. What does Paul mean? The immediate context here, in contrast with pleroma, the Greek word pleroma in verse 12, argues for the Jewish people, quote unquote, as a whole. All right, the Jewish people as a whole. But the spiritual Israel, all right, now the spiritual Israel, in parentheses, both Jews and Gentiles, that's in parentheses, may be his idea in accord with chapter 9, verse 6, and then in parentheses he has Galatians chapter 6, verse 16, and then he says, as the climax of the argument, at any rate, we should strive for and pray for the conversion of Jews as a whole. Now, it's just that one part I wanted to read there because he mentions that the Jews and the Gentiles together make up spiritual Israel. So now of course I don't agree with that, but I mean that's what he says because he's a regular, Baptist Christian and doesn't understand who people really are. Now let's see. I'm not going to do anything with this one, but this is a good book, Study in Hosea by Howard Rand. Now Howard Rand has a number of books. I got a number up there on that top shelf up in there. I've got a number of books. There's another shelf up above that goes up to the ceiling. I got a number of Howard Rand's books. They were written back in the 50s, I think before that even. See this particular one here, what do we got for date in here? September of 1955, Haverhill, Massachusetts, by the author. And so Howard Rand was a man that understood Israel identity, but he was back back from the days when people were actually working on British Israelism, which is different. It's a bit different because in British Israelism, which I have many books on Christian identity that are British Israelism books from the late 1800s and the early 1900s. I have them on my computer. I've downloaded them off of the web. And I've got the covers printed out. Let's see, do I have that right here? Let me see. I have got so much stuff. Yes, here they are. I'm not going to be able to hold all of this up here, but this is, this is just page after page after page of the covers. I just print the covers out and then put them in here for my reference. But here's one, the British Israelites. The British Israelites, and that's a book from when? Well, 1885. That's 1885. Here's a book from 1882, 192-page book. It's called Domino Divinity, 55 Chapters of the Gospel of Anglo-Israelism. The Gospel of Anglo-Israelism. Because they knew that the Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, Germanic, Scandinavian people were Israel. They knew that back in the middle 1800s. Well, they knew that way back before that. A lot of those people knew that. They have information that the Scottish have information going all the way back to I think it's 1200s, back from their beginnings, indicating that their people came from Israel. Here's one, 47 identifications of the Anglo-Saxons with the lost 10 tribes of Israel by Edward Hine. You can see that one. And so I've just got this whole 3-ring binder filled up with all these things I've printed out. God's Covenant Man, British Israel. What's the date on that one? 1916. See, some of them are early 1900s. So we've had this. Here's Israel Redivivus, I guess we would call it, being a history of the tribes of Israel, distinct from that of Judah, from the times when the biblical accounts of them came to an end. And that's by F.C. Danvers in 1905. Another book, 1905. All right, now these, and then of course I have some that are, I got a whole up on that shelf. Where is that crazy thing? Oh gosh, I just can't figure out which way to point. But anyway, up here, further over in the second section of my shelving, up on the top, there are just tons and tons up there of small books like this. You know, they're just small. They're not very big, 30, 40 pages, something like that. This one here happens to be the Epistle to the Romans by Gord. And that's, let's see, when did he put this one out? I'll get at it here. W. Pascoe Gord, the late. So he was dead at the time this was put out. This was put out in 1947. I think you can see the cover there, 1947, Epistle to the Romans. W. Pascal Gord. And I'm not sure when he died. One could just Google and find him. Google and find out when it was that he died. But here it says he distinguishes between the church, the Jew, Israel, and the world. And that's the church is hagioi, the Jew, Iudios, Israel is Israelite, or Israelite, the Greek, and then the world he's got is cosmos. There's other words for world other than cosmos, but that's the mainly used word in the Greek in the New Testament. So again, he's a British Israel person. In other words, he knows who Israel is. The only problem is that those people had a problem with the Jews. And now, I mean, they're still cooking. They're still cooking over there. The British Israel people are still cooking. They've got their organization still operating. They operate in England and in Canada and Australia and New Zealand. And they've got a lot of good materials that you can get, through their organizations, through their websites, and so on. And a lot of them have come around to a more true understanding of who the Jews are. See, they used to think that Israel was the Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, Germanic, Scandinavian related people. That was Israel. Well, then who was Judah? Well, Judah then was the Jews. Yeah, I mean, just like all the Jews we have running around today. You know, who's giving President Trump a hard time right now? Adam Schiff, a Jew. And who was giving him a hard time a little while back? That was Nadler, head of the Judicial Committee. Schiff is the head of the Intelligence Committee. Nadler is the head of the Judicial Committee. Nadler from New York, a Jew. And it's just down the line, down the line, all these Jews. Who's the head of Fox News? Wallace, or whatever his name is, right? Jew. And Solomon has done a lot of really good work. He's with the Hill, and he's doing, does a lot of research, exposing a lot of stuff. John Solomon, Jew. All these people are Jews, just tons and tons and tons of them. So the English back in the 1800s, early 1900s, and some of them I still think even now, they still cling to the idea that the Jews are Judah. So they're God's chosen people just as well as the British, the Germans, the Belgians, the Finnish, the Swedish, the Norwegians, etc. All those Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, Scandinavian related people, in other words, basically your white people, they're Israel. And the Jews, these Jews are Judah. Well, that's a huge mistake. That's a huge mistake. The Jews, as we know them today, are Khazars. They're Khazar people. They have nothing to do with the Bible. Nothing to do with it. They started up around 800 AD, the Khazar Empire, and been cooking along ever since then. And then they got their Zionism going in the whole ball of wax, and basically they pretty much control the world. And the ones that should control the world are the Israelites. That's us. But Christianity has been improperly taught, the Bible improperly written in certain ways, so that we think the Jews are it. We're nothing. We're just Gentiles, so we're just like everybody else in the world, just Gentiles. and therefore weren't basically not going to run anything or try to run anything or try to do anything, because we got to kowtow to the Jews because they're God's chosen people. So it's a horrendous thing that's been going on and is going on. And most of the Zionists are not, Jewish at all. Excuse me, it looks like I got a little piece of hair in my glass. I just got a haircut a couple days ago, and every once in a while I still find a little piece of hair flying around someplace. Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. I was talking about there. Oh well, it's terrible when you get old. And my memory, my mind. I'm 81, and a lot of people at 81 are sharp as a tack, but I'm not. My memory is just really sad shape. Okay, now I'm just trying to go through some of these book things. I've got more to do here. Let's get this one out of the way because I already mentioned that one. And then here's another one. And again, this tape was it was supposed to be for a special person, but I could use it for others if it works out well. But here's another book, Romans and Galatians, and that's by Rousas John Rushdoony. Now, okay, I've got to get my finger out of the way so you can see that. Rousas John Rushdoony. Now, he's got a lot of books out, and again, if I can point in the right way, okay, pointing back here in this bookshelf, way over on the other side of it, way over there, he's got a whole shelf by himself, plus some more running over into the next shelf. Rushdoony books. And I got into into his deal, studying his stuff years ago, back before I learned about Israel identity, and but not too far before that. But his stuff is good because he's the man. He's one of the most important men in Christianity that's brought out the concept that we need to be obeying God's law. God's law. 10 commandments, Jesus said that those commandments, on those commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So you got hundreds of laws hanging off of those 10. So you think, oh, I obey the 10 commandments. Well, are you obeying all of the commandments, judgments, statutes, and everything else that are hanging off those 10? That's what Exodus gets into it, but then Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Yeah, talk about memory. See, I know there's another. I know there's another right in there that's important. Leviticus. Yeah. Okay. So those are the main ones. Pentateuch talks about God's law. So he really got that going within our country and within Christianity. The concept of the importance of God's law. So here he has a commentary on the book of Romans and Galatians, which is good. But one of the things with him is that talk about having a library. His whole house was a library. He had thousands and thousands of books and materials in his house. And he rejected the concept of identity. So you have to be a little bit careful with all his books, because when you look at the bottom, and it's like on a page here, down at the bottom, you'll have all those notes and stuff. And in his books on the law and so on, we look down the bottom, and he's got one Jew and another, just one Jew and another, that he's getting his information from, because he thinks the Jews are God's chosen people. So he gives them, a lot of a lot of credit for biblical knowledge and so on, which is just, to me, it's just a shame. So you got to be a little bit careful there. But anyway, he takes the same, position in here again, that basically, I think, if I remember correctly now, that you got the Jews and then you got the Gentiles. Just brilliant man. Of course, he's dead now. His son runs his organization. I never met him, but I've met his son. I went to one of their get-togethers here in Florida, and did meet his son. But Rousas John Rushdoony is just an absolutely brilliant man. But he rejected the concept that we are, in fact, Israel, clinging to the old, standard Christian concept that the Jews are Israel. All right, so now you know Pastor Ramsey, Pastor Everett Ramsey, and here's a book that I purchased from Pastor Ramsey, A Kingdom Commentary on Romans. Kingdom Commentary on Romans, Pastor Ramsey. Kind of unusual the way he's put this book together, having the regular reading from King James Bible in here, and then he has his idea of, I think it's his idea of what some of the things should say, and then he has information from other sources, and it just goes that way through the whole thing. Oh, yeah, Farrar Fenton. He has the Farrar Fenton translation in there. Okay, yeah, there it is. Maybe you can see it on the bottom here. Yeah, let's see which hand. Yeah, I've got my hand over it. Gosh, I can't figure out which hand is which. Anyway, where it says there verses 4, 5, then it says Fenton right here, Fenton translation and Ramsey paraphrase, and then he has other information, and he has a lot of information about the meaning of the words, the Greek words. He covers that pretty good, tells you what the Greek words are. So it's good. I think it's good, interesting to read in there and go through that. So I've worked a bit in that book of his, and there's another situation here. Well, yeah. Let me just tell you this first. Okay, here's a new book put out by Pastor Ramsey. Have I got my hands out of the way? Yeah, down the bottom. Okay, a study on the exclusivity of God's covenant with His people. Dr. Everett G. Ramsey, and he names that God made a racial choice. So that indicates that there's just one race of people that are God's people. God's people are not made up out of a lot of different races, which the concept of spiritual Israel is, as I showed you there in the Robertson book, The Expert on the Greek Language, because he mentions right there that spiritual Israel is the Gentiles and the Jews. So the Jews are that, special seed, Abraham's seeds. That's the Jews, according to the regular church. And then those that believe in the spiritual Israel concept, then they add in the Gentiles, because they're in Romans 11. God grafts in those Gentiles into the Jews, grafts them in, and he in fact he kind of drops out the Jews, even cuts them off, and grafts in the non-Jews, the Gentiles, non-Jews, and then that whole thing makes up the spiritual Israel. All right, so let's just make a parenthetical comment here if one uses their head a little bit. Gentile, that means a non-Jew. Okay. So that means every black person, generally every black person in the world is a Gentile, a non-Jew. But there are some blacks, like even over in the sandpit called Israel, that nation over there that they, misuse the name and call themselves Israel. They have blacks from is it Ethiopia? I think it's Ethiopia, that they brought in quite a few years ago, a whole lot of them. And now, of course, they've been trying to get rid of them. But Jewish blacks, there's Chinese that are Jewish, so on, right? So, but generally, non-Jews are Gentiles. That's our Christian deal. I mean, that's the standard thing. So that means basically all Chinese are Gentiles. And a couple billion of them? Yeah. All blacks are Gentiles. All the Muslim people, generally, I mean, all the Arabian type, whatever, Muslims, the Turkish, which some say that they're actually the Edomites from Esau, and all the Indians, American Indians from North America, Canada, Central America, the Aztecs or whatever, and South America, the Peruvian areas, all those different Indians, they're all Gentiles. And then what else have we got? Well, then it would be all your white people. So all your European type white people, Anglo-Saxon, Scandinavian, Celtic people, everyone from New Zealand, Australia, Canada, United States, Britain, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Spain, all those people, they're all Gentiles. So you got a whole lot of different people. They're Gentiles because they're not Jews. And you got two groups of people in the world, Jews and Gentiles. And yet the Bible talks about waiting until all the Gentiles come in. Waiting till all the Gentiles come in. Wow, that's 2,000 years ago that's talked about in the New Testament. Oh, pretty much 2,000 years ago. And how many have come in all this time? Coming in means that they're going to be Christian people. The new covenant was given to the house of Israel and the house of Judah. I'm going to put my law within their mind, in their heart, and they will want to obey me. And I'm going to give them one leader over both house of Judah and the house of Israel. I'm going to combine them into one. They're no longer going to be two different kingdoms. They're going to be one. And they're going to have somebody over them that we know of as the Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior, our God. He'll be over all of these people that God considers his chosen people. But everything is waiting for all the Gentiles to come in. So all the Chinese have to become Christian. I forgot about India. All the India Indians. You got, like 1 billion or whatever it is over there. And then all these white people, and then all the black people, all the Indians, all the Eskimos, I mean, whatever you want. I can't even think of other people, but Pakistan, I mean, all the countries, all the Muslim people, all the Turkish type people, all of them, they've all got to come in, and they should have been coming in for 2,000 years what have the apostles been doing all this time? And what has God been doing? I mean, really, that's if you just think about it using your head, you'd have to say, well, I don't know that I can really believe in anything because God must have just been asleep all this time. Because he said he was going to bring all these people in. And obviously they're not in. They haven't been in. The only people that have been Christian for the last 2,000 years, pretty much, Lee, have been the Anglo-Saxon, Scandinavian, Celtic, Germanic, and related people. They're the people that used to be called Christendom, and not dumb meaning, stupid, Christendom. Now, Israel in the Bible was divorced by God around 700 BC because they didn't believe him. They didn't believe him, and they wouldn't be obedient to him. So you can read the prophets, read Hosea, read Isaiah, read Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. You're going to find out that God says, you're not obeying me. You're following false gods and living according to other laws, not my law. You're not being obedient to my law. And you're not worshiping me. So he changed that with the new covenant so that the people would worship him and be obedient to him. So at that time, the Israelites were, a lot of Israel, and he said Judah was even worse than Israel was. That's stated in Hosea. He says, your sister was worse than you are. But anyway, so God's chosen people, his saints, that's who saints are, his chosen people, Israel, the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob down. Not Abraham, Ishmael, or Abraham, children of Keturah. He had a number of sons with Keturah, and he had Ishmael with Hagar. No, God says, no. I have an anointed seed for you. Sarah is going to have a son by you, so it'll be you and Sarah. Not any other woman, not any other man. You two, 100 years old apiece or whatever, miraculously, you're going to have a son, and that son's name is Isaac. Then Isaac's going to get married, and he's going to marry his same people, Ur the Chaldees, people that Abraham was, and then he's going to produce Jacob. And then Jacob is going to have children, and he's going to have 12 different children, sons, and they're going to make up the 12 tribes of Israel. And then Joseph is going to have sons in Egypt, Ephraim and Manasseh, and Jacob adopted them as sons, therefore making up actually 13 tribes, because Levi was split up among all the tribes. They were the priestly tribe. So they were split up among all the tribes. So basically you had 13 tribes, and that Manasseh and Ephraim were also to have a multiplicity of tribes from them. And they were to be great in number. And God said that even after he was killing off a number of them in 700 and so on, because they were so disobedient, he said, still you're going to be like the sands of the sea shore and the stars of heaven. In other words, you're going to be in the millions, billions, whatever, in numbers. And how many Jews are there? They've never, ever said they had more than 18 million. Generally, they say they have about 14. And of course, they say Hitler killed 6. They're just a small bunch of people, and they always say, "Oh, woe is me, woe is me. We're just a small bunch of people, and we got to be saved by everybody, and everybody has to help us all the time." No, God said you're going to be nations upon nations, and you're going to be powerful and everything. And what was the British Empire? They controlled the entire world. And after they kind of lost their steam after World War II, there was another one that took over called the United States of America, made up of pretty much British people, Anglo-Saxons coming over from England and then Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and a lot of Germans coming over, Dutch coming over, French, Finnish, everything. The Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Scandinavian, Celtic people coming to fill up the United States and Canada. And then the United States became then the most powerful nation in the world. And we've been that ever since. And Christianity is our religion. And it's the religion of all those countries of Europe. Now, because of shenanigans that we get ourselves into, like especially Sweden, get into socialism. Well, they're not actually, it's social, but it's, the welfare state thing and everything else. They think, well, we don't need the state church anymore. We don't need God. So they get into paganism. And so now some of their people, are into paganism. And some of the people in the United States are into paganism and so on. I mean, that happens. It's been happening down through the whole time. But by and large, all of these countries have been basically put the stamp on Christian, Lord Jesus Christ being their leader. And they basically have laws and so on, very close conforming to God's laws. Not perfect, but very much conforming to God's laws. All right. So anyway, I wanted to mention that this book, God Made a Racial Choice, that was put out by Dr. Everett G. Ramsey, when he sent me this book, I purchased it from him, and he sent it to me, and I started to read it. I said, whoa, there's something wrong here. I just got through reading this book off of my computer. I would read it at night when I went to bed until my sleeping pill put me to sleep, because I have to take sleeping pills to get to sleep. And so I couldn't read it right from the computer. So I went through the process. It took me hours and hours and hours of getting it printed out in printed form, and I put it into a 3-ring binder. And that's what I used to read in bed. And I'd gone through the whole thing, and then I got this book, and it was the same thing that I'd just gotten through reading for the last few months. It took me a few months to read it. And I said, what in the world's going on? And I looked in here. Let's see if I can find this now. I should be able to find it. It's up in the front part here. Right. So on page 11, and the bottom, page 11 of the introduction, he says here, thanks to the late Arnold Kennedy of New Zealand for much of the research he did on this subject. Editor/author Everett Ramsey, D.D., D.M., D.O., D.C.L., T.H.M. So I sent him an email and I said, what's going on? That's Arnold Kennedy's book. And you put your name on it and you print it up, you're selling it. So he sent me an email back saying that he and other ministers within the identity group got together and thought that Kennedy was dead. He died in 2007. That his material on the internet was getting nowhere, And they needed to get that information to people so that they would realize what was going on. I mean, who Israel was. And they decided to just go ahead and print it into a book and have it be Pastor Ramsey's new book. Well, what can you do? So now I just got some information from him recently saying that they're trying to figure out how they can get up money to pay for the books because they're printed, and so you got to buy them, and so that they can get them to all these different people that they want to get them to, different pastors and whatever. So anyway, it's not my idea of how things should be done. But the thing is, for you, you need this book. It's important. And you don't have to buy it. I bought it, but I didn't know what it was when I bought it. You don't have to buy it. You can get it on the internet because it's Arnold Kennedy's book. And all you got to do is go to Arnold Kennedy's website. Like I said, he's dead. He died in 2007. But the book is there. So you can read it right there, or you can print it out like I did. See, months before I got this, I printed it, I downloaded it onto my computer, so I had it there, and I had it in PDF format and also in HTML format or whatever. In other words, I put it in word processing. And you can do that. And so, let's see, where did I write this down on here? Oh yeah, okay. If you Google in Arnold Kennedy, just Google Arnold Kennedy, and then hit enter, you'll see it there. It'll say known works, Israel elect. So write that down. Arnold Kennedy. That's just like President Kennedy and Arnold like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Kennedy. And then when you could put in, well, I think that's the best way. You put in Arnold Kennedy and then hit enter. And then it'll show you some stuff there. Most of it's about other people, other Arnold Kennedys. But you'll see it'll say there, known works Israel elect. Known works Israel elect. And then you click on that and you go to his website. And then up on the top will be the book itself, the exclusiveness of Israel. The exclusiveness of Israel. And that's why they have it on the bottom of this book. They put on here a study on the exclusivity of God's covenant with his people. Because Kennedy called his deal the exclusiveness of Israel. And then it'll up on the top, you can have it. And I don't know if you can read it, click it and read it there, maybe. But you can download it in PDF or like into your Word, if you have a word processor. I mean, Microsoft Word on your computer. You can download it and then put it in, go ahead and put it over into Word, or download the PDF version, and then it'll be PDF. Now, the other thing is you'll see that there's all kinds of books and materials listed, just a long list of his stuff. Just go down until you find the exclusivity of Israel. It'll be there. It'll say the exclusivity of Israel Old Testament, exclusivity of Israel New Testament. And you click on that, and it'll be right there in PDF format. And you can read it right there, or go up to the top, move over to the right a little bit, and then a thing will come down with a little arrow, and that will let you download it. Then you can download it into your computer and have it in the PDF format. And he's got all the different chapters individually available, so you can download those in PDF format and have all the individual chapters on your computer, whatever. All right, so that's that book and Ramsey. All right. Now, Here's another thing. Another very important book. And Ramsey, well, I'll just say this. He died in 2007, so obviously his research was before, before 2007, or not later than 2007 because he was dead. All right, here's a book by Ted Weiland, and he put his book out in February of 2005. Now, I don't know how long Arnold Kennedy had his book on the web. I have no idea. I just happened to find it, just a few months ago. Come across it, and then downloaded it and said, "Wow, this is great!" And so I wanted to read it, but I wanted to read it in bed, so I printed it all out and put it in a 3-ring binder. But anyway, so I don't know when it was on the web. What I'm trying to get at here is, did somebody get information from another person? Did Ted Weiland get his information from Kennedy, or did Kennedy get his information from Ted Weiland? I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. But Ted Weiland printed his book here in February 2005. His book, very important as far as I'm concerned, is The Mystery of the Gentiles. All right. So this is the mystery, supposedly, of the non-Jews. So that's everybody else in the world. Billions of people. What do we got now? Is it 4 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion people in the world? And they're all Gentiles. They're all non-Jews, except for about 18 million at best, which are the people who would say, I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. Right? Bow down to me because I'm a Jew. I'm special. So anyway, and then it says, who are they and where are they now? That's the subtitle. It's by evangelist Ted R. Weiland. Now, Ted Weiland, I just joke with people to say he's my guru, and guru maybe is not a good word, but in other words, he's the fellow that I've gotten so much information from. When you go to his website and you look at his sermons, he's got, well up over 1,000 sermons, and they're about an hour each. About an hour each, and over 1,000 sermons on his website. And my wife and my wife died in 2013, and she got sick in 2010. I mean, really sick, and then so that after that, we basically were not listening to his sermons anymore. But before that, we used to listen to his sermons every day. When we eat breakfast and when we eat lunch, we'd listen to one of his sermons. And I'll tell you, really learned a lot from Ted Weiland. So you want to get this book. You want to get this book, or he has a bigger book that's on the whole covenant people. You could get both of them, but I would say the other one, was 300 and some pages or whatever. So I'd say get this one, and you'll be able to go through here and just get the scoopy doop on what's going on, who Israel is, because you got to know who the Gentiles really are. They're 10-tribe Israel, and who the Jews are. And that's in this book. So you're going to get that book. Now he said, well, hold a minute. If I bought this book, I don't remember what the price is. So let's say it's $15 to $20, $21, something like that, whatever. Then I got to put out that money, and I don't have that kind of money. I've got a child, and okay, well, I just showed you how you can get this book for free, because you're going to get it from Arnold Kennedy's website. You're going to download it, and then you can read it. And also, you can get this book for free, because Ted Weiland gives away all his books for free. All right? He's got a lot of books. He gives them all away for free. I was surprised. I just went today onto his website to check and make sure. I haven't been there for a while. So I want to check and make sure what you're going to find when you go to his website, because his policy always has been that he charges for the books. Like this one would probably be $10, $15. which is a normal price for a softbound like that. And if for some reason you say, well, I can't come up with that much money. Maybe I could come up with 5, or maybe I can't come up with any, but I'd like the book. You could get it for 5, or you could get it for free, because he's not doing it to make money. It's just that where is he going to get the money to produce all these books? He's got to get the money from people that support him and his ministry, to be able to produce all these books and get them out to people. So really, it's a matter of donations. What you're doing, you're just giving him a donation, and then he's getting the book to you. But if you can't give him a donation, he'll give you the book free. He's never going to say, oh, I'm not going to give you that book. Now, when I went to the website today, it just says we give away all our books free. They don't even have a price on any of the books. I don't really understand it. I mean, I don't give him, I'm kind of a cheapskate. And I don't give him money, on a regular basis. I don't give him money all the time. Now, I gave him money just a few months ago, 2-3 months ago. I gave him $1,000. And then before that was a while, I gave him $500. I mean, every once in a while, I'll throw in a big chunk. But I don't give him money regularly. I just don't do it for hardly anybody. But I give chunks every once in a while, a good chunk. And my concept there was that I know he's obviously giving away books, and he needs the money to be able to produce the books. So I'll throw in a chunk, 500 or 1,000, whatever. And I was just surprised today that the thing just says book is free. But here's another thing. Instead of taking advantage of him by, well, you can donate. So he's got a donate thing on there. So you could say, okay, well, I could pay $10 for that book and just donate $10. And you just get the book, because he's going to give it to you free, which includes, I think it includes the shipping. But I noticed another thing he's got that he didn't have before, that the book is available in Kindle or different things, things that would be within your computer. And one thing is the PDF. Now you can read the book. I think you can read the books right on his website. At least he used to be able to. Maybe he's changed that. I'm not sure. But anyway, you could download the book, PDF. Then it's just absolutely free. You're just downloading it from him into your computer, and then you read it on your computer. It's really not costing him anything. So he doesn't have to he doesn't have to go to a company and produce this book. You're just downloading it PDF. So that's another way to do it if you want to do that. But that's the mystery of the Gentiles. And within that, he talks about spiritual Israel, which we just saw from Robertson back in 1931, trying to tell us that spiritual Israel is the Gentiles and the Jews together and everything, and that's all spiritual Israel, right? Which is not right at all. Okay, so how do you get to Ted Weiland's site? You write it down. It's mission, MISSION, mission to, T-O, Israel, ISRAEL.org. And that's all one word. Well, I mean, before the dot. So mission to Israel is one word. So you can just go to your Google search thing there and type in there, mission to Israel as one word, .org, punch enter. And it'll take you right to his deal. And there'll be, you can go, it's so that you could go right into his book department or, whatever, different things, right? And then you go in. I can remember a couple of years ago, the Jews, I'm quite sure it was the Jews because I looked at some of the stuff, they get tricky at times, and they don't want people going to his place because he tells you the truth of who the Jews are and who they aren't. So they made a deal up that was mission to Israel, same name, right? So that if you just went up there and punched in mission to Israel, boop, you'd buy right in their deal and you'd be getting all this Jewish information. And I thought, this is terrible. But now I notice that when I type typed in the mission to Israel, it seemed to bring him up. But if you put it in as one word, mission to Israel, one word, .org, and then hit enter, his thing is going to be there, and then you can go to his site. And then you would go to store up on the top, different things. And you go to store, and then you're going to look at the books. And his other book there that, didn't I write it down here? No. Something Covenant. It's up on my shelf. It's up on the shelf up there. It's a thicker book. It's something about the covenant. I can't remember the exact name. But you could get that one too. But I would suggest this one on the Gentiles because it's very easy to read. It's not going to take you a whole lot of time, and you read a whole bunch from that. And then, all right, then here's another thing. Audios. And that's what he calls broadcast library. So instead of store on the top, you go to where it says broadcast library. That's all of his audios. He doesn't have videos, which I think is a huge mistake. I think he should have made videos of all his 1,000 sermons and everything, because I like watching videos, but they're audios. So all you're going to do is listen to him. You don't see him. But anyway, they're good. I don't think there's anybody better. So you go there, and he has a deal where you can go in and ask for the particular video you want. Otherwise, you go over to the right side, just run the elevator down, and I would say to go down to T. They all start with T. Go down to T-937, and that is Romans Vital Clues, and the subtitle on it is something to do with the two sticks. All right, the two sticks. And for your question to me, that's going to give you some good information there. And then the next one is T-938, and that's Romans Vital Clues, blah, 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 and subtitle is Paul's 2, TWO 2, olive branches. And that's where he's going to go into this thing of the grafting in. And there are 3 other excellent sermons that he has in his Hosea Prophet to the New Covenant House of Israel series. There's 3 of them in there that I listened to, and 2 of those were right in this business of the 2 sticks and about the grafting in business in Romans 11. And I had all kinds of notes made up on this stuff, and I cannot find my notes. So I can't remember which ones. Well, that's no problem. You could easily find that. No, not with Ted Weiland, because 1 hour a piece on his sermons, right? And that Hosea series, that's 35 sermons just on the little book of Hosea. 35 sermons. He doesn't mess around. He doesn't mess around. So that starts with T1126. So T1126. If you want to go there, and you can download all those sermons too. You can make a place in your computer for Weiland sermons or something like that, and then download them and chunk them in there. But it goes from T-1126 to T-1160. So it's 35 sermons, hour apiece, on the book of Hosea. And Hosea is all about Israel, who Israel is, and what happened to Israel and what God has in store for Israel and Judah. And yeah, and I'm sorry because I can't remember which ones it was that I went through. And I had it written down, and now I mean, my place is a mess. I do so much research on all kinds of stuff, and I got piles all over with notes and notes and notes. And I tried to go through it here just a while ago, and to try to take each pile and kind of look. And no, I'm just not seeing my stuff that I had done on that. Apologize also that that it's been so long since I said I was going to try to come up with something on this thing, that I'm absolutely addicted to all this political stuff. Absolutely addicted. I mean, I just can't stop myself. It's terrible. I watch hours every day of videos on the whole political scene. I mean, what's happening with all this politics and the everything they're trying to do with President Trump, so on and so forth, arguing back and forth, and what the Senate's doing and the Congress is doing, and foreign policy and everything. So I mean, I just spend most of my time on that and don't hardly get anything else done. And I mean, I live alone here at home. I'm 81. I'm not in very good physical shape, and still I've got to take care of my house, and I got to feed myself, take care of my yard, take care of the whole ball of wax. And I don't get hardly anything done. Sometimes my dishes are in the sink for 3-4 days because I'm just into all that political stuff. And finally, I just have to stop and say, "Oh, I got to wash my dishes," and get the clothes in the washer, or the dryer, whatever. So, yeah, it's bad, but it's so interesting to me what's happening in our country. So let's see. I also mentioned that the word world, it's just it's all over the New Testament. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Whosoever believeth on him should not perish but have eternal life. Well, what is world? Who's the world? And that's in Kennedy's thing, or this book, if you happen to want to buy it. It's in there. You'll see it in the Kennedy thing, because he has a chapter in there on what, I think it's called like, what world does God love? I think it's something like that. What world does God love? And there's the word eon. That means ages or age. And so you have since the world began, or the world, and that's referring to the eons, the ages of the world, and so on. And then cosmos is the main word in the New Testament, and cosmos is, I just got it on my paper here, but it's the Greek word numbered. The words are numbered, the Hebrew and the Greek words. I mean, they come up with a system, and that's in, I don't know what you have in the way of books or anything, but you can find all that on the web too. But this one, you get this big book here, right? Well, I can hardly lift it up. It's like 10 pounds or whatever. And that's, let's see, this way. Yeah, okay. That's Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible, all right? And that's numbered. So this whole thing is numbered. All the words in the Bible are in here, and the numbers are there for them, whether it's Greek or Hebrew. And then you can go into the back of it, and the dictionary part in the back of this book, and you can look up what supposedly what the word means. Not always right, because again, Strong that did this, just like all these other guys, they're regular Christian guys. They didn't understand identity. So for them, there's two people in the world, that's the Jews and the Gentiles. And so you have to use your brain as you're working on all that stuff. And then there's another important fellow. And that's this book, Thayer's Greek English Lexicon. And that's by Joseph Henry Thayer. All right. And this new one, as it says on here, the new Thayers. Okay. Now I've got the old Thayers too, but this is the new Thayers. This one is numbered, just like this big one is. So when I tell you to look up the Greek word cosmos, which is translated in English generally as world, might be earth, you know, like, but world, basically, world. And I say it's the Greek number 2889. You just go into this book and they're numbered. So you just look up 2889 and there you got it. You don't have to read the Greek. And in here, same thing. You go into the back, in the dictionary in the back, and look up 2889, and there you got it, cosmos, and find out a little bit about what the word's about. But if you use the old Thayer's, that's right here. Thayer's Greek English Lexicon to the New Testament, Joseph Henry Thayer. And my oldest grandson, I told my daughter to name him after Joseph Henry Thayer. So she named him Joseph, so his first name is Joseph. That's my oldest grandson. But anyway, in this one, when you want to look up cosmos, you've got to look it up understanding Greek. Not understanding Greek, but knowing the Greek language, because it's just straight out Greek language. So you got to go A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, and get to the right place with the Greek and find the word cosmos in Greek. So therefore you have to get your thinking cap on and learn the alphabets of the Greek language, get it in your brain as to what you're looking for, and then get in here and start going through alphabetically until you can narrow it down and find that 2889. And you're not going to find the number, you're just going to find the words. But all of a sudden they came out with this new one, which is nice, and they put the numbers in there because they know that a lot of poor Christians are never going to be able to find those words by looking at the Greek. So they made it so they can look and find it looking at the numbers. That's pretty nice. So anyway, that's the G for Greek, 2889. World, that's cosmos. There's another word, world, and I suppose I'm probably spending a whole lot of time here. Let me just set this one on the floor. That's my whole deal. Everything goes on the floor for me because every space I got is taken up with something. I've got another 3-ring binder here. This was a rhythm flashcard. That was my wife's. Like I say, my wife died in 2013. She was a piano teacher all her life. She had a bachelor's in applied piano. But anyway, I made up in here, let's see, there's the Hebrew, and where's the Greek? Let's see. There's the Greek. Okay. So in here I've got all these sheets made up, you know, one after the other. All of these are all Greek words, and then after that I've got all these Hebrew words in here. So they're important words that you need to know. And so I've got in here that word cosmos, a sheet for that. So 2889, I've got them numbered. I've got them in order by number. So there it is right there. And I get them off my computer. I have a big, nice, wonderful Bible program on my computer. And I can search. I can just do everything with that thing. And I got hundreds and hundreds of books on there that I can read and study right on that computer Bible program. So then I can print out, I can look up a word here, and it says, you know, Strong's word 2889. Then it tells what the meaning of it is, and says orderly arrangement. In other words, a decoration. What? That's world? Is an orderly arrangement? Well, I can understand a little bit orderly arrangement. Yeah. Decoration? That doesn't make much sense, actually, you know. By implication, it means the world in a wide or narrow sense, including its inhabitant, literal or figurative, moral. It's got to do with moral, too. And so how does the King James use it? They use it two ways, adorning and world. So when women adorn themselves with jewelry or a hairdo or whatever, the word is world, cosmos. Yeah, so it's a little tricky there on some of these things to know what is going on when you're reading the Bible and reading the New Testament here. Same thing in the Greek. But so the other word is number 3625, and I can't remember how to pronounce it unless I see it. So let me pull it up here. 3625. Here it is, number 3625, and that's oikumene. 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 Greek word oikumene. 3625. And it's translated into the King James with two words. One is world, 14 times in the New Testament, and one time it's translated earth. And it says feminine participle presumed passive of the Greek word 3611, oikio, as noun by implication of the Greek word 1093, gi, land. Land, that means land. All right. So in other words, the terrene part of the globe. So not the water part, but the terra firma, land part of the globe. That's a whole nother subject. All right. I'm not a globe guy. All right. But so that's what it says there. So then it says specifically, this is good. This is interesting. I mean, this is important. Specifically, what? The Roman Empire. All right, the Roman Empire. Where is Palestine? In the Roman Empire. Where is Galatia, Cappadocia, Bithynia? You know, all those places that Paul went, Macedonia, and in fact, all the way over it at times, even including England. That Paul went, right? And the apostles went. That's Roman Empire. That's world. And that, I believe, is quite often the real meaning when you're reading in the New Testament. It means that Roman Empire. And who was the main people, really, in that Roman Empire as far as God's concerned? That was his people. That's the Israelites. Both the Judeans, or Judahites, I should say, Judahites, and the Israelites. Because his Israel people were broken up after Solomon died into two groups. Two tribes under David then became Judah. They were the Judahites. And that was the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. And if you remember, Paul tells you that I am a Benjaminite. So he was a Judahite because he was a Benjaminite. Paul was not an he was not an Israelite of the 10 tribes, but he was an Israelite because Israel is all the tribes, but when it was split into 2 kingdoms with 2 governments with a series of kings, then you had Israel, the 10 tribes, which was the northern part of Palestine, and then the southern part, centered on Jerusalem, was the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin, and they were under Solomon's son. I said under David, but that's David was way back when it was one thing, Israel under David. So this is under Solomon's son, and that's Jeroboam and Rehoboam, and I can never remember which one is Solomon's son. Terrible time with memorizing things. But Solomon's son was the head of one, and this other fellow was the head of the other. And the Solomon's son was the one that was over the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin. And then the other guy was over the 10 tribes. And around 700 BC, God brought in Assyria, the most powerful nation in the world. He brought them in and let them take away the 10 tribes, all that northern part from way up in Galilee area all the way down just north of Jerusalem. He let them take all that away into captivity. They also took away a lot of the Judeans from the 2 tribes, all the little towns and things outside. They just went in and grabbed those too and took all those people over into the Assyrian captivity. And then around 500, 200 years later, around 500, God allowed them to come in under Nebuchadnezzar and then take Jerusalem and take all the Judahites and burn down the temple and, you know, break down the walls and the whole ball of wax and take them over into Babylonia. So that was a Babylonian captivity. Then 70 years later, a number of them came back under Cyrus. Cyrus, the Median king, you know, was told by God to, you know, let my people go back. So he helped them go back to Palestine and rebuild the temple and rebuild the city of Jerusalem, build the walls back up again, everything. So that's kind of the, you know, the history there of that. But, you know, the meaning of these words is important, what they mean. And there are other words also in the Greek for world. These are just 2. There's some other ones too. Like I said, the eon is another Greek word meaning the ages and so on. So, you know, since the time the world began, it'll be, you know, since the time the world began, or the end of the world. What are those things meaning? And then also, you know, God loved the world, and he tells us we are not to love the world, because to love the world is enmity with God. In other words, if we love the world, we're in trouble with God, because we're, you know, telling God, don't want nothing to do with you. We're with the world. So then what's that? The globe or the flat earth, you know, or what? No, it's talking about the moral part of things, basically. Do you love the mafia? Do you love the rebels in Washington? You know, the communists, Marxists? Is that what you love? To kill off millions of people and enslave everybody? So, I mean, that's what it is about the world. Love not the world nor the things of the world, right? Do you just love money, power, all that stuff? So there's all kinds of different meanings to the word world. And in many places, I believe that it means, basically just means Israel. For God so loved the world. What? God so loved the mafia? God so loved Esau when he said, Esau I hate, Jacob I love, and Esau I hate. Well, Esau was part of the world. And then God says, well, I love the world. Well, how can he love the world if Esau's there? How he doesn't love Esau? So that's why Kennedy says in his book, What world does God love? He brings up that question and discusses it. What world does God love? God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. And yet there's all kinds of scriptures that say that Jesus came only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He came only for his own people. He didn't come for everybody. So then, but it says, John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Well, what is the world? The orderly arrangement? Not the disorderly arrangement of Satan, but the orderly arrangement of God, that world. Maybe that's what it means, that world. So what people were in the orderly arrangement of God? God's people. Yeah, so anyway, that's a deep subject. I'm not going to spend more time on it. But the thing is that this concept of grafting in, Weiland is going to show it in his book here, and also in those audio tapes. It's the Gentiles are 10 tribe Israel, and they're being grafted into back. See, they were divorced by God. He divorced them. God's wife was Israel, all right, but he divorced that whole section, the 10 tribe portion. He divorced them, and Israel means ruling with God. So after he divorces that bunch and puts them into captivity, sends them out into pagan lands to live out there as pagans, they didn't do Sabbath anymore. They didn't obey God's laws necessarily anymore. They didn't circumcise anymore. That's why they're called the uncircumcision. You'll see that in Acts and in other of Paul's writings. The uncircumcision, that's 10 tribe Israel. The circumcision are what are known as or written down as the Jews, which are actually Judahites of the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin. They're the circumcision. They were all circumcised and doing Sabbath and all acts. Now, not doing everything right, because Jesus really got after them about how they're doing a lot of stuff wrong. But the 10 tribe people, they're out there in pagan land, acting and living like pagans for 700 years, not circumcised, not doing the deal, and have no real power with God, because Israel means ruling with God. They couldn't be Israel. That's why they were just called ethnos, or nations. But the King James people, I shouldn't say the King James people, the translators translated that word ethnos, which means nations, translated that as Gentiles in many cases. Gentiles not a good word. That's a Latin word, gentilis. Shouldn't be in the Greek Bible. It shouldn't be there. It should be nations. Nations. Ethnos, or the ethne, depending on whether it's singular or plural. Ethnos, ethne. And that's the nations. And so that's what's happening, is God is bringing in those nations, the 10 tribes, nations people who were pagan, bringing them in, and by faith, they're coming in. Not by their circumcision, not by the rules and regulations of, the whole ball of wax there, like the Judahites were doing, wearing the right clothes and phylacteries and all being circumcised, and kosher, and all that stuff. Well, no, these pagan 10 tribe people, 700 years, they're coming in and they're being preached to by Paul when he goes over into their area, which you can see all through the book of Acts. He's preaching to those people. He says, oh, yeah, those Gentiles, they wanted to know more, but the Jews got upset, and they're all jealous, right? They got upset, and they're, kick them out and throw them in jail and all this stuff. Because those Jews, and it doesn't mean Jews like today's Jews. Some of them could be a mixture of Edomites and so on, but basically they're Judahites. But they didn't believe the Jesus story. They didn't believe it. They took him up and put him up on a cross. Hung him up on a cross, killed him. Now that had to be done, but that's what happened because they didn't believe him. But these 10 tribe people believed when it was preached to them, they believed. So they came in by faith. And that's what Paul's talking about in Romans. You guys came in by faith, but Israel, and that means 2 tribes, the Judahites, because they were the ones ruling with God. Therefore, they could be called Israel. 10 tribe could no longer be called Israel. And the Judahites considered the 10 tribe people out there as being unclean. And that's the thing with Peter and the sheet coming down. God says, rise and eat. Peter, no. Again and again, eat, rise and eat. Peter, no. I've never touched anything unclean. Then what did Peter find out when he got to Cornelius's house and realized it was God was telling him is don't call the 10 tribe people that I have made clean. Don't call them unclean. That's what Peter learned. And so they're being brought back in by faith in the sacrifice of Christ and becoming Christians. And the Judahites, who are nothing but rebels, killed Christ. And then in 70 AD, the Roman army came in and slaughtered about 1 million of them, I guess, and they were scattered all over the place. Just rebel. They just weren't going to go for the Jesus, the truth of the Jesus sacrifice. They were all hung up on their sacrificial system. And God finally brought that to an end in 70 AD. He destroyed the temple. They burned it down, destroyed the temple right to the ground. Just cut out the sacrificing. You're done with that business. That's what the whole thing is all about. So it's the 10 tribe people coming back in by faith. They're being grafted back into the main program of God under Jesus Christ. And then he says also that those that have been thrown aside, in other words, the Jews, which means then the Judahites, the 2 tribe bunch, when they come to faith, they also can be brought back and grafted in. He says, but don't you guys, you 10 tribe guys out there, don't you get all boasty about it and think that you're bigger wigs, bigger than the Judahites and talk badly about them, because God could then cast you out again. So watch out, he tells them, watch out. I mean, that's what that whole thing in Romans is all about. That. But it's one race of people. But that's not what Christianity teaches. Okay. Well, I have no idea. Well, I do have an idea. I've been going on for an hour and almost an hour and 45 minutes. That'd be the longest thing that I've ever made. And I've gone through quite a bit, and it's not the answer that you want. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's right. I printed this thing out a little while ago from Ted Wineland's website there in regard to the covenant book, the bigger 300 page covenant book, which is got more stuff than this one on the Gentiles. So, eventually, I mean, I've got it here. I've read it. I've got it here. It's an excellent book, but it's a whole lot more stuff. And the important thing right now is to nail down who these Gentiles are. And they're the nations. They're the 10 tribe Israel bunch, paganized people for 700 years that Christ is dying for on the cross. And they're coming in by faith. And so anyway, for that bigger book, it says here, this book demonstrates that God continues to have a plan for physical Israelites under the new covenant dispensation. It corrects the common fallacy of a spiritual Israel, like Robertson was talking about in his book. Made up of people from a diversity of races. That's wrong. Israel is a spiritual, Israel is not a spiritual thing. It's just like it says on this book, God made a racial choice. He chose the man Abraham and the woman Sarah, or Abram and Sarai, changed to Abraham and Sarah, and their son that he made miraculously for them when her womb was long dead. Now, Abraham was still cooking, because after she died, he married Keturah and had about 6 sons with her. So, he was still, like a lot of old men are. They're still able to produce children. But women, when the womb dies, they're done. That's it. And Sarah was done. She was close to 100 years old. So she was way past time when she could be getting impregnated and bring forth a child. That's what God did. So he was the miracle child. There was another one later, and that was Jesus Christ, a miracle child. But that first one there was Isaac. And so that's that racial choice that God made. And then Isaac then had Jacob, and he had the 12 sons, and then their seed. It's always their seed, their seed, their seed, their seed. And I just thought about that like maybe a month or so ago. I thought, well, hold a minute. How about all the women? Where did Jacob, if Jacob was descended from Isaac, and there's something special about that seed, then how did Jacob get wives that would have been from Isaac? There weren't any. He didn't get them from Isaac. He got them back from home, where his cousins were. He got the wives there. So it's not the woman, it's the man. The man is sending down that special seed of Abraham and Isaac. Down, 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 bringing women in from outside and then producing sons that have that seed that then will get a woman from perhaps outside. But after, of course, there's enough women, you could get women that are closely related to the seed. But the thing is, the important thing in the Bible, church teaches the opposite. You are not to be mixing. You're not to be mixing. You don't run out like I did. See, my children are half Japanese because I got married when I was in Japan in the military. And that's absolutely verboten. But I didn't know it. I wasn't brought up to know that. But most people today don't know that. The churches teach, oh, you're going to mix, oh, that's wonderful. Go out and adopt a black baby, or whatever, oh, marry this black person, and on and on and on. And the government promotes it, and everyone promotes it. No, God says no mixing. He tells the people right that in Genesis right away. You got cattle and all these different things, and don't mix them. They're to be after their kind. In other words, the seed after their kind. Don't mix them with something else. And we're not to be mixing. We're not to be running out and getting a black woman or a Chinese woman or a Japanese woman or an Indian woman, or anything else. Yeah, so that's the importance there. So anyway, he says, made up of people from a diversity of races, the spiritual Israel concept, that's the main church concept, and that's absolutely wrong. So then it says you're utilizing scriptures, archaeology, and history. This book proves who Israel is and who Israel is not, thus exposing the imposters. Well, the imposters are modern-day Jews. And it discloses why this revelation is of such significance. An attractive book with over 700 documented quotations, over 30 early American and European testimonies, and more than 40 biblical, archaeological, and historical proofs of Israel's modern day identity. So that's the big book, the Covenant, something, I don't remember the exact name, but something about the Covenant, thick book. And you could get that one too. I mean, download a PDF. It's not going to cost Weiland anything if you PDF it down. Just PDF it down. It won't cost them anything, and you've got it there. And I'd say that read this one first. And once you, maybe you understand all of it already. I don't know, but I mean, I'd say work on that one. Then later on, just grab that Covenant book and start going, because there's a lot more. Like it says in there, you got this, that, you got the European stuff, you got quotes from early American political people, I think, and a whole lot of stuff. So, all right. So that's it. So Yahweh's blessed, Yahweh's bless, Yahweh's best. I get it straight here. Yahweh's best to you and yours. And I'm going to sign off now. Okay.